Alpha, we can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Willa, I can hear you, but not Avel.
Yeah, me neither. I can't hear Alpha. Alpha is muted now. I was trying to access Wiki a few hours ago. I think it was down. I'm not sure if it is still down. Jira was also down sometimes yesterday in the evening. I think it is still down. Jira and Wiki. Somebody is attacking these sites, I think.
Yeah, it's not accessible for us.
Yeah, but I think they are under attack. I mean, it happened last week, and then they've been restored, and again it's happening this week. Somebody must be attacking the things.
Avel said it's network issues. He can hear us.
Yeah, has network issues. Anyway, so the wiki is down. Let me see. The wiki is okay, still down. There are some issues which we are supposed to be discussing, but those things requires Jonathan to be on the call, and I was hoping he was gonna be on the call. Apparently, he might be having some other issues that are holding him. So, yeah, for the most part, the things I wanted to discuss with you guys involves Jonathan. We have the point of care, the one he is trying to develop using the Django, Python, and HTML5. Here's a prototype, I think, or some working version for LT for one of the projects at Ampath. And then I was hoping we could discuss how we're going to deploy the PCS module in Muzima, or according to you guys, Muzima, on production to avoid those conflicts we are getting. So I don't know. Have you guys made any progress?
No, I think we're still waiting for JJ to do the testing.
Yeah, and I was also hoping to. That is the second thing. The third one, I was hoping to discuss the SMS issues with JJ so that we can have a clear understanding of what we are supposed to be doing or what can be done regarding this, because we are kind of not on the same page. And then another thing is the patient matching module and the errors that Alpha is facing. And the last was the Hub Zero software, which of course I was hoping Ada was going to be presenting to us. Right, Ada?
Why me, Willa? I think I already did my testing, and I shared the feedback.
Okay.
And you're supposed to look at the code and provide your feedback.
Yeah, but I was just hoping we will get the feedback from the user's perspective, because
I already shared my feedback.
You did?
Yep.
Where have you shown? I haven't seen anything like that. Well,
Through
yeah.
email, and N already replied.
Oh, that was the feedback?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, but on the dev call, I mean, that was just between you and Anne.
I think that we are missing your part to review the code, as we discussed last week, and then you're going to, from the developer perspective, I think that's the remaining to do.
Yeah, I can't review the code. The thing is, I need to install that system myself, because from the access I've been granted there, I don't have access to the code. I can only view, or maybe I just don't know how to do it.
So maybe you should contact them and let them know, because I think that's what you suggested you plan to do. I think it's good just to let them know if you encounter any issues. Yeah,
well, I'll try. Because I just tried to access that system, and I saw the views, and I'm sure I could create other views. So my interest was to see the backend, how it works, how we could take the AMRS tables and create the database, flatten out tables, especially using the derived database Jonathan has created. and then from that trying to create all these different views. So I wanted to see the back end of the things, how things are working in the back. And what about Win? Win, do you have anything to say about this?
No, nothing for me, I think.
Have you tested the system?
No.
Okay. Okay, so what do? Buck is not here, Jonathan is not. Oh, Jonathan is here. Great.
Hey,
Hey,
okay, who do we have on the call? Who's Ampath?
That's Win.
Ah,
Ohio is over at Ampath.
No,
okay.
Win, you are Ampath actually. In case you don't know.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going on. Lead me. Do you want me to talk now, or are you guys talking about something?
go ahead, Jonathan, if you want to talk.
Sure. So I've been redesigning what I've been doing to make it more JavaScript friendly. Basically, I've taken the approach of an Angular-like framework, namely meaning that I more or less transported an MVC into JavaScript, but I've just kind of made up my own MVC net framework instead of using Angular, just because Angular is a little heavier weight, and I figured once I got this going, I could think more about making this a little more robust in that type of a setting. Does everybody know what Angular is? Does anybody know what Angular is?
Yeah, JJ,
Yeah.
I think you might want to start by introducing what we're discussing here.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll take a step back. So I think one of the questions that we're facing is how do we deliver a front end to AMRS that's usable by end users like case outreach workers. I see what you wrote, Alfio. Will is the only one I've heard so far. Anyway, my initial approach had been Django focused, and I think that in the current context, originally I built a web app that essentially would go back and forth between Django and the user and delivering new content. I did a bunch of reading over the past week, and I think I'm a bit behind, but there's been really a tremendous move in the web application space to using things that are basically more JavaScript friendly, or not really friendly, but just developed in JavaScript. Some of the most sophisticated technology that's still being developed actively right now uses a pure JavaScript both on the client side and on the server side. And mainly they do that to enable kind of real-time sharing of information, something that's not really necessary for us. But check out Meteor if you're interested in that. For us, I wanted to design something that, one, could be run offline, and two, remained a web application. And when I started reading more about HTML5, it provides pretty much all the tools that you need to essentially run what they call single page web applications, where you can store a lot of the data that you might need to run your web application in a storage area that's provided by the HTML5 standard. So basically that's what I did for outreach. So I kind of converted most things, although not everything at this point, to a web application that's a single page app that runs in a browser. and that basically will pull all of the data necessary to run the application and store it online, and then use that as an access point until it needs more information. It's more easy to understand in the specific workflow that I'm looking at. So for outreach, we at each point in time, or at a time when it makes sense for the outreach team, they will request a new list of patients, essentially a cohort. Right now I limit it to 100 patients. So what I do is I pull the 100 patients and all of the data that I need to populate their forms and to provide a web dashboard, and I store it on the device, and then from there on out, the device will just be interacting with that local storage using JavaScript commands. And forms can be loaded through, or in a sense, the single page app just changes what the user sees, and it will switch from being able to allow the user to choose a clinic to get a list of patients from, to being able to display that list of patients, and then to being able to show a web dashboard for that patient dashboard, and then the ability to enter a form. So maybe I can just do a brief demonstration, if I can share my desktop. So can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the dashboard right now. I give them three what I call apps. They're not really apps, but for the sake of marketing, it works better to call them apps. This is kind of the main thing. Web's patient search actually takes you to another page, which does your more typical workflow in the client-server paradigm, where it's obviously not practical to store all the data for every single one of the Ampath patients on the device. So any sort of patient search is going to be going to the server and coming back. For the outreach defaulter list, you choose your clinic, okay, and then you do get defaulter list. I'm messing around with things right now, so this may not be the best time to be demonstrating. I was just working on something. Here, hold on one second.
JJ,
Yeah.
while you're trying to fix it, so how is this going to work with the AMRS? I mean, will we need to support two different technologies? Because I think at some point we'll be deviating from AMRS, and then it's going to be. I'm just trying to think about the challenges we'll be facing when we are maintaining these two projects. Don't you think it's going to be a bit challenging?
No. The reason is because this is a front end, and so essentially you can plug these apps into AMRS or into Musima. I think it actually what's the word? Complements those technologies very well. So the idea being that we would shift any sort of future development of front-end work from Java into JavaScript, make these apps, and then what they do is they rely on some sort of an API call to get the JSON data that they need to fulfill their purpose. Okay? So AMRS either the AMRS would be providing the API in the form of REST to get data that you needed, or you could do what I'm doing, which is that essentially my outreach work produces their own lists, and then I use the API from that to data that I need to run this app. I think the beautiful thing about this technology is that it's agnostic to what the server side is doing. It just depends on being able to call the data that it needs. Is Win on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Win, I feel like this has the most obvious applications for the Musima stuff. HTML5 gives a lot of the power that one needs to run an app both offline and online. I think there's some pros and cons to using an app versus just a web app. The advantage of the app is that the main advantage I see is that you get access to the file system of the underlying device, and you get an API to access functionality that lets you take advantage of features that are on the device that are not available yet through HTML5 and JavaScript. The disadvantages that I see is that if you want to update your application, I don't really understand the workflow for how something like an Android application would be able to update. So, for example, let's say these HTML pages, would the user have to get a whole new APK? Are you there, Win?
Yeah, I think our consideration at the time was we want to support 2.2, and the browser in 2.2 is not I don't think it supports HTML5.
2.3, you mean Android 2.2 doesn't? Well, it's not based on the Android version. It's based on the browser. So Opera Mobile is available on. I haven't looked at 2.2 because all the Huawei phones that I'm using are 2.3.6, and they all support Opera Mobile, which supports HTML5.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we're using hybrid. We're trying to. The main concern is the non-availability of the latest browser technology in the older Android phone. I mean, the form filling side we're using. We're trying to use as much as possible with the power of the HTML, because I mean we're using just regular HTML file to collect data, but yeah, we're having some difficulties in terms of how, especially how the browser renders some what do you call it? Some control the HTML input, like. For example, the one glaring problem that we had was in the Galaxy, no, not Galaxy, Huawei tablet, whatever the, what is the tablet name, Ada? The one used by the CDM, I think. You try to fill something, but it's not rendered correctly. So that's some of the consideration. That's why we're using hybrid. I mean, Angular is really nice if you have the latest browser technology in your phone.
Yeah, so I'm not using Angular. I'm just doing everything through jQuery, and making my own kind of fake framework. That's a generous description to call it a framework. But it's less like independent of what technology we were to use. If we were to use Angular or something else, it's more the model of making these single page apps. So right now we have this kind of concept of a form, and then and the form's purpose is to collect data. And I think that's a different way of looking at it would be to say we have a workflow that a user is going to participate in, and we support that workflow with an app, not with a form. And then the app is responsible for various views that enable the end user to complete their job. And so using a JavaScript-based client-based approach to doing this, it makes it agnostic to what the server is doing. So it could be OpenMRS or any other database technology, as long as it can provide the the calls for data. So anyway, I feel like I might be rambling a little bit, but I'm going to be trying this out with the outreach team. Hopefully, I'll have all the bugs worked out over the next week. But I see this as being complementary to Musima. Everything that I'm doing right now at least works in 2.3. So I'll have to get back to you once I start doing some field testing, and we'll see if the devices themselves can handle it. And I have no idea about 2.2's ability to. Really, the only key feature of HTML5 that I require is this object called local storage, because you just need a place to put stuff. And then we have an offline app. So questions?
Isn't the data is gonna be gone if you close the browser, JJ? I don't know.
That's the beauty of HTML5 local storage. It persists indefinitely until you clear it. And the storage belongs to the domain. So essentially, since I'm the only one on test server 1, I control that. It's not a lot. It's only 5 megabytes, but it's more than enough. And the kind of the other paradigm shift that I think is a little different from Musima, which it would be great to talk more about, which is that Musima asks ahead of time what OBS you want, and it looks on, I guess, the form. I mean, I don't know exactly how you make the decision, but maybe we need to think about an API call for all of those things, and that you build something to produce that data set, rather than continuing to look at it through an OpenMRS-centric model of OBS and encounters and whatever. I hear a lot of silence right now. I'm going to put myself on mute. Is there any comments?
Yeah, so JJ, I think the reason we are discussing this is because during the technical call, you suggested that we use this technique to develop something that will be used as a first version of the point of care system at Ampath, right?
Right. That actually reminds me of one key thing that I needed to bring up, which I mentioned to you before, Willa, which is that the way that I interact with AMRS is through REST. As far as I know, the modules in AMR or OpenMRS don't log anything that comes in through REST, which is obviously a big problem. One, because occasionally the REST seems to be throwing exceptions, which I I'm not exactly sure why they're being generated. And two, if there is an error, you'd like the information to go somewhere so that it can be reviewed and then potentially fixed and processed later on. So where I have stuck to my Python Django is that I've created an application that does just that. It's when my web application, the outreach stuff, has a user submit a form, it goes to Django, which then logs everything and then sends the request to AMRS. So as a short-term solution, until we get a module that more or less does what my app is doing, what my Django stuff is doing, it would be that we could develop a point-of-care system that basically continue to send the data first to Django and then to AMRS. And we would just have to think about the workflow of what this would look like. I don't think it would be too many different views. I think it would pretty much be the same set of views that I'm giving right now for outreach, which is, an ability to look up patients, an outreach, a dashboard, and then the one thing that would be different would be that a clinician would require more information, and we'd have to think about what information the clinician needs. And then we could start with just one form, like the adult follow-up form, and just see how it goes. The one thing that's really less relevant for the clinic is that it's not so practical for it to run offline, in an offline mode, because there's too many patients. It would be possible to predict perhaps a good amount of the patients, because I have a lot of data which shows when patients come back to clinic relevant to their return to clinic date, but it would probably still be in the hundreds, and it would be much more difficult to imagine trying to run something like this offline. It would have to be continuously connected. Any thoughts?
So, JJ, I think we need to think through this, but while we are thinking, because you're saying that the app will be using purely REST calls, right?
Would be using what?
REST calls.
MRS. What do you mean AMRS calls?
REST, not AMRS.
Rest. Oh, REST. Yeah, REST. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the application and the AMRS will be completely decoupled, except for the REST calls.
In the sense that the user is not going to be going to amrs.ampath.or.ke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But for the way that I think about this is that that's true, but that's only true because we don't have a good way of logging REST processes within AMRS. As soon as we had that module, you would just you'd repoint the post URLs to AMRS. It's only a few lines. You could potentially just make it one line of code to change, which is just where is your data going.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this in terms of the progress we are making in the OpenMRS, because see, at this point now we're on 1.9.7. So if we do a development against that version, we'll be using a specific data model, which means with time, so are we going to be stuck with 1.9.7 forever, or because now we'll be having to maintain two systems, as if we upgrade from 197 to any subsequent version, say we go to, we are suppose we're interested now to go to OpenMRS 2.0. Of course, the API is there's a platform and the reference application which are different, but still, how are we going to handle all these processes? We have to, yeah, this is just sending REST calls, but I think as the OpenMRS evolve, the call, the rest will also be evolving. It will be different. So I don't know. Don't you think that is we really need to think through this, because otherwise we might end up having a very difficult time when you want to, especially in maintaining these two systems. It will be like maintaining two systems. I'm just thinking of the challenges that we might be facing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. What I think is somewhat unrealistic is to expect that there's a generic OpenMRS interface which can be used for the point at the point of care across any set of sites. So in the end, I think that no matter what, each implementation is going to have their own user interface to do what they want it to do. If they have the means to do so. Otherwise, they'll either hack what they do, or they'll use paper and then figure out a way of putting it in that way. So I don't see that this is a duplication of effort. I think you need something, and I'm not sure why it's better to have something inside of AMRS rather than outside of it. In fact, I think it's better to have it outside of AMRS because it's hard to maintain those modules. Whereas for us, doing it this way, all you have to do is make sure that your REST calls, the most important one being hosting an encounter, remains consistent. We just follow if they happen to change the data that needs to go into a post call for an encounter, then we just change those lines of code to make sure we're giving them the data they need to allow us to submit an encounter.
Yeah, it will be great if we decide to adapt this, to have that in mind, because yeah, it might seem like just changing these lines of code, but if we don't have this upfront, it means we'll be having to change so many places where we're doing these REST calls. So if we can, yeah, well, I guess it's more of a design issue, like taking into consideration all the things and then making things like this configurable so that you don't have, for example, to change multiple places where you're calling. Right. Yeah, you're having all these response. Yeah.
Right. So all of my REST goes through a single function. So for me to change the URLs, it's just one place in the code. For that very reason, which is that I anticipate that at some point in time, that's gonna the way that we do a post is gonna change, and we're gonna have to modify our code to be consistent.
Okay, one other thing. So if I have understood you correctly, you said that you have some kind of your personal framework, like you have made something like an MVC sort of a thing using JavaScript.
Yeah.
Don't you think that is going to be? It's going to be difficult to scale up, because then what I'm trying to say is, if we use something that is standard, it is out there, it's being used by different people, then it's easy to, because those things, they are tested, they are robust, people are using them, so it's easy to discover there is a bug. It's easy to for example, get some error. It's easy to shout out something like, okay, we have this problem, then what's going on, and people will say, okay, this is what happens when you do something like this, rather than having something that is in-house like that. Is just you who knows it right now. I mean, at this point, it's just you. And yeah, well, when you want to scale up, you want to do more development, it's like I find
No,
it.
I agree with you, Will. That's why I was saying in the beginning. I was saying for now I just made the pseudo one because I think Angular is was a little bit too. It was too much learning for me to have to learn their whole thing before I did something that I wanted to just prove I could get working. But 100%, we would be much better off using some framework, Angular being one of them. There are others out there.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what other guys are thinking. That was just yeah. That were my concerns. So
Yeah.
maybe if we can hear from other people.
You know, one other thing is that I just wish Burke was on this call. He had actually mentioned to me in passing in the past that other OpenMRS people are using Angular, Angular apps to within OpenMRS. So I don't think that we would be the first ones to be doing this.
Yeah, I think Darius is using those. Okay, so maybe because we don't have Brad on the call, we can just move to something else. At least we have an idea of what you're doing and what you can expect from your application. I
Yeah.
think maybe we should move to something else before these guys who they have the questions. Alfio, yeah, I hope Miencho will ask their questions, but maybe they are related to this next agenda I want us to discuss. This is about deployment of PCS and Mozilla on production. So JJ, we had issues I think a couple of weeks ago when you tried to upload these modules. We faced some exceptions. You couldn't have your REST working. You were facing some issues. So what is the plan for this? We need to get the data from lab to the AMRS, and if the PCS module is not there, we're not going to get them. So we need to set up a plan to have this module running.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jonathan, I mean, you're the one who's saving. Every time, I think the only problem we have is when we deploy PCS, the REST calls you're making are not working anymore.
No, nothing was working.
Nothing like you. What do you mean nothing? Like nothing.
No, all the forms were just going into the hold queue.
Interesting. Error queue?
No, not the error queue.
Hmm.
The like pending.
Ah, they are pending. Okay.
Agree with you. We got to get that working.
Yeah. Okay. So is it only about forms, and it's just about forms in REST calls, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it's just REST. All the forms you're going into pending.
Yeah, no, it wasn't because of my stuff that we stopped it. I could have put my stuff. It was no data entry could happen while the PCS module was running.
Okay. That is new information to me. Okay, so the only way to test it is to. Oh, so you're saying when somebody is entering data in one of those forms from Infopath forms, when they submit, it's like they can't submit, or they submit and the forms ends up somewhere they shouldn't be ending up.
I don't know the exact workflow of AMRS, but from what it looked like, they just ended up in this. What's it called? I don't remember the name of. There's so many queues. I'll tell you which one.
Yeah, there is HL7 error queue. There is archive. Then there is the message queue.
Queued messages. In the queued message queue.
Yeah, that's where they should end up anyway. So why is this a problem?
Then they just stop.
Okay, so you mean HL7 was not processing correctly. The processing was not happening. That's the problem, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, probably we can't hear him, so. Okay, so what do you guys suggest regarding the deployment of PCS? What should we do this weekend? Can we have some time and try to see if we can have it deployed in the HL7 processing as expected?
I think that's possible. Am I on mute?
Okay. Because there's Musima also here. I don't know. Do you have to do it differently or do you have to do it at the same time? PCS and Musima. Win, what do you think?
I don't know. So the Muzima guys have assured us that their stuff is working. So I'm beginning to think that the PCS has a lot more problems. So we could give the Muzima guys a chance to prove to us relatively quickly that their stuff works. So we could put their thing up, try and enter forms and see what happens. If that goes okay, then Musima can stay.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds like a good plan.
And in the meantime, I know you're working on the lab app, Willa. So you tell us how you want to test it out. But the weekend would be fine.
Okay, fine. Then I'll communicate with you guys on. Oh, tomorrow is Thursday? Okay, on Friday then. We'll have to. That will be tomorrow evening. So you guys will see the email on Friday morning, and then you can set up some time to do this together.
So.
Okay. Maybe this guy should come to you, Jonathan. You are at Ampath, right?
What? I'm at Ampath?
Yeah. So these guys, maybe they should just come to your office and do it from there.
The only problem is I don't have Wi-Fi.
No, I mean they can use your computer right now. We can't hear them, so if they come to you, then you'll be using.
Oh, I'm at Ampath. I think they're in the informatics office.
Okay.
I don't know where they are.
So what do we do? Because
let me see where they are. Sounds like they're coming up here. All right, we have company.
Okay, we have come. Actually, we were at Fire's place. Unfortunately, the laptop failed us, so we decided to come in. So, as you have been made aware, we had two issues we wanted to raise. The first one is that of PCS. I think JD has already highlighted the issues we had with PCS. But I wanted to let the team, because I know there were some modifications that were made to the module. right now there's a lot of urgency to get data from the lab into MRS, and I'll prefer we hasten to have a plan to have this module deployed by tomorrow, if things will be okay. I think the issue JD highlighted was that of stopping processing, because it's like all the forms that were being entered when the module was up were ending in the held queue, so they are not processed. So I hope that is something that can be looked at, so that we can have that module installed in production to get the data from the lab into MRS. That's urgent and is as a program priority. The next issue is that of the errors we have. As you may also be aware, we have around 142 data-related errors that ended in the error queue, form entry error queue, and these are the errors that are supposed to be resolved for reporting to take place. The issue we have right now is that there's a tab within MRS for resolving remote form entry related errors by the data managers. That tab is not actually has just stopped working, so it means it can't pull these errors from the table so that the data team can help resolve them. So as at now, these errors cannot be resolved, and it means reporting cannot take place. So I'm requesting the team actually to prioritize these two issues because they are critical to the program. Any questions for me?
Who's working on Ampath, are you working on the PCS or is it just Will?
Thriller now. I don't know where I worked on it up to some points, but I don't know where it is.
It is me, JJ. I'm working on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Miacha,
Yes.
can you find some time after this call, maybe 1 hour after this call, then we can see what we can do with the pieces?
Okay, no problem.
All right.
We'll be available.
Okay. So Alpha, actually yesterday, I don't know if you saw my last message to you. It was about the remote form entry. That page.
Yeah. That is restaurant tab.
Yeah.
That is actually stopped working. It has been working. It's just stopped working. Yeah, but it works. Yeah. So it works and it stops sometimes. So right now you can't pull the. So if you check, you click on it, it shows like there are no errors, but we know that we have put a number of them in the database, in the table. So that one should be able to pull to enable the data team to go through those errors and resolve. Once that is worked, we can just give out these error resolution issues to data, because when I went through the errors with the help of the script I received from JD, it's like we have errors that are data related that we need the data manager to look at, most of them. So we'll have that tab working so that I can work with the data team to have those errors resolved.
Yeah, Alpha, do you think you can take a look at that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fine. So the ticket is AMRS to actually I think Jira is down anyway, so
MRS 311.
yeah, 311, but Jira is down, so
Yeah.
we can do it. Okay, anyway, so I think we are set. So Alpha is gonna be taking a look at that page issue, the remote form entry errors page, and see to it that it is being displayed as expected, and then I'll be working with you, Miancha, on this PCS module.
Sure.
1 hour from now.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate the effort. I know going forward we need to look at how we can get these modules properly tested. I know we have some limitations with the test server because we can't actually very well test the issues of processing that we experienced when we moved the module to production. But we needed to find a way to make sure that all the modules that are being developed actually are not interfering with the services of our production server.
All right.
Okay, this is Chege. Maybe to add one more issue, we have some issue with the math. When you try to write any data into MRS, it's returning an error. I had showed that to Alfio. Maybe he thought maybe it's on the folder. So maybe that could be looked into also as you fix the PCS module.
Sure.
Chege, I'm not sure I understood.
Yeah, what are you talking about? What was the first thing?
I'm saying currently the math is not writing into MRS. So the math is the one that we use to write.
Oh, the mirth.
The mirth. So we are not. It's not writing into MRS as it is supposed to. So we had looked at it. I had raised the same with Alfio. We looked at it and he said some rights with the folder. So I'm saying as maybe you look at the PCS. Maybe you and me could maybe make some time and look at the rights on that folder.
Chege, I thought PCS was sending data directly into AMRS. Is it sending it through map?
No, it's sending through map.
Oh, is it? Okay. So it was changed at some point. Okay.
Yeah. Jeremy changed that both PCS and EID are sending through map.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks.
Okay.
So we are done. Unless there are questions.
Done. Keep going. Okay, thank you everybody. We're signing off over here.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.